Bud.
Here we go.
Here we go. Gary Freese Sr., Jason Coggins.
Jason back.
Yeah, buddy. We're back. Season 2. Season 2, baby, of Tailgate Trash Talk. Here we are. College football season is less than 3 weeks away.
Right around the
games
corner.
Right around the corner, baby. My man, Gary Freese. Gary, how you been, bud?
Good, man. I'm excited. College football's coming back, as you said. Let's get this thing going. We got some big news tonight. Looking ahead to season 2 for Tailgate Trash Talk.
Yes, sir.
Looking to bring some really cool stuff to the show this year. So excited to kick this thing off.
Absolutely. And Jason, let's do it. Gary Freese Sr., here we go. Let's go. Tailgate Trash Talk, Season 2, Episode 1 is underway. I'm your co-host, Big Stove, along Gary Freese, and we are Tailgate Trash Talk, along with everyone that follows us. So, Gary, what are you looking forward to this year, bud?
Oh, man. There's a lot of storylines. Looking at, we're going to talk a little top 25. I look at a few teams that are in the top 25 that I didn't really expect to be in. There's a couple that are out that I thought might have been in, some borderline teams. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go here in the next couple of weeks, talking top 25. I'm looking forward to how does Georgia, right? How do they follow up, finally exercising demons? Saban's talking about last year being a rebuild year. Really interested to see how that plays out. The Jimbo and Saban rivalry, obviously, if we get to see that.
Is that a
the
rivalry?
Big Ten.
Is that a rivalry?
I guess. I don't know. They hate each other, whatever it is. Lincoln Riley going to USC and Big Ten getting new teams, getting a bunch of money from TV deals. It's crazy right now in the college football landscape, with especially NIL, right? I think NIL sent ripples across the college football landscape, and some of this that we're seeing now with realignment, the TV deals, the money that's just getting thrown around. I think NIL may have been the tipping point for a lot of this stuff to start looking at what's a super conference. How do we make this more marketable? How do we capitalize on this momentum we've got? And the conferences they're really pushing hard, to is it TV money? Is it bringing more teams in? Big Ten's got some West Coast teams. We talked a little bit about that. It's unbelievable right now, all of the news in the cycle and the changes that are going to happen across college football as we see it here the next year, 2, 3, 4 years down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jason Coggins making the comment here about more like the first 48, with
yeah,
with Saban and Jimbo there and everything else like that. But no, I mean, we touched base about some of those West Coast teams moving to the Big Ten Conference, a few weeks ago, and talked about the impact there. We talked about the impact of the SEC with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas. That was the big storyline last year, along with the NIL and everything. This offseason, really, it's been pretty quiet aside from a couple storylines. And you mentioned it. It's been the Saban Jimbo mashup. Bitter rivalry now, if you want to call it that. I don't know if it's a rivalry when Saban is basically, 50-2 against assistant coaches in his coaching career. And then the other big news that, I think really shocked college football in general was the big news of the Pac-12 schools moving to the Big Ten. And there's still talk about a few more schools potentially making the move to the Big Ten, but then also maybe the Big 12 too down the road. But we haven't seen that yet. And honestly, if it doesn't happen before the start of college football season, I really don't see anything happening during the college football year with any of those schools.
Mm-hmm. I think right now what we're seeing is the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are flailing. They're trying to keep up. The Big 10 and the SEC have put their stamp on it and said, we're the big boys, right? And we all know Big 10 and and the SEC have always had the biggest voice in the room when it comes to college football. So right now, we've seen the SEC has kind of carved their niche out, right? They're going to have a team that might threaten the playoff. It's been Clemson for a while. It was Florida State for a little while. Miami's starting to come back. We might see them kind of, stick their necks out there. But like the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are just they're starving for relevance, and I don't think they're going to get it. And as you said, if we don't see movement here in the next 10 days or so before the season starts, we might be looking at potentially, long term, the Pac-12 and the Big 12 kind of dissolving. I do still think that we are going to eventually get a college football alignment that resembles the NFL. And we may have two major conferences and then kind of a grouping of the also-rans, where the Big Ten and the SEC, if they stay with those names, they're going to kind of play their season out. They'll have their own playoffs, and then the bowls are going to be those playoff games, and then the big bowls at the end are going to be, we'll probably still have some sort of playoff format, but we're going to look at, the group of five is no longer going to be a group of five. It's going to be like everybody else essentially. But yeah, I think if we don't see the Pac-12 and we don't see the Big 12 make moves, like you said, here soon, we may be closer to that, super conference realization than, we may think we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we somewhat touched base on it this last season. And more so the fact, not the super conferences, but the dissolution of the NCAA in general, and having each collegiate sport ran like a professional team, professional league. I still think that is inevitable. I think that will happen. Where down the road that is still yet to be seen. But I really believe with the passing of the NIL deals and what everyone has seen, how that has transpired from day one to now, and the potential that it has in college athletics, not just for football, but for all sports in general. I think it's just inevitable that the NCAA, I'm going to say within 10 years. And I honestly think it'll be less than that. I think 7 max. And the NCAA will be no more.
I think that's fair. My big concern when I kind of war game this, I guess, in my head and think about what that will look like. You mentioned the other sports, right? Basketball is a revenue generating sport and football is a revenue generating sport. But really outside of those two sports, collegiate athletics are not revenue generating sports, even baseball. For as much pomp and circumstances there is about the College World Series, we've talked about it on Rosenbaggers that the regular season just doesn't get anybody's attention. Mm-hmm. So you look at football and basketball, they're the revenue generating sports. How are they going to subsidize then the remainders of the remaining sports, right? The NCAA has been, for all of its flaws, the NCAA has been good to other sports, male and female alike, right? Title IX with equal treatment and equal opportunity. I worry about that in the grand scheme. And I almost think we might see the possibility of football breaking away and creating its own clearinghouse, right? Whatever you want, its own governing body like the NCAA is. And then the NCAA stays over everything else. And schools can still fund those sports through the NCAA, but football is just kind of excluded. I think we almost, and I don't know how that would work, right? There's a lot of moving parts, but I just think that it would be very, very tough if the NCAA just dissolves to then just make it kind of a free-for-all. So I'm curious to see how this develops. And I think your timeline is probably a fair timeline for them to be able to work out all the kinks in terms of figuring out how that all works, because we don't want to just completely dump on the rest of the student athlete body and say, well, you're kind of on your own now, right?
Yeah. But the other thing too that we touched base on during the off season was the potential for Mark Emmert to step down as president of the NCAA and hire someone with a more business-like mentality and run the NCAA like it needs to be. And that is a business, because that is exactly what it is. Mark Emmert doesn't have a business background,
Right.
He's just the president of the NCAA. We threw some names out there, for the potential suitors, that we would potentially like to see as president of the NCAA. And I still think that can happen too within that time.
And that might save the NCAA,
Absolutely.
right? The name of the NCAA, but it'll be different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I really believe that if they get someone up there with that business mind that it needs to, then I honestly think that the NCAA has a shot in saving itself, and to where moving forward, all sports in general, obviously your football, your basketball are your two revenue driven sports, and then volleyball behind that. I think it's just going to be a much better option than going the first option that we just talked about.
Right. I think that's a more viable option if the NCAA is willing to admit that they're not in charge anymore, the way that they keep saying that they are, right? This isn't 1985 college athletics. Money's different. The entertainment value is different. The approach is different from players. The NFL treats it differently than it did in 1985. So let's get out of this archaic mindset. And like you said, get somebody in there with some business savvy. Quick aside, how long do you think it would have taken the average collegiate sports fan to guess that volleyball was pretty close behind in terms of the next in line for revenue generating at colleges? Because I think it would have taken people a long time to.
Really? And I guess
I just don't think that that's on the mainstream conscious of people that they would think about it. But college volleyball is a lucrative. It's a big fucking deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think people get the pub.
Sure. Yeah, but, and I think, and this is me, I'm being biased here just because of my background.
Tremendous too.
Where I grew up, and you had Husker football, you had Husker volleyball, and then in the late 90s, early 2000s, you had Husker baseball. Okay, and Husker volleyball to this day, with John Cook as the coach for as long as he has been there, and if you look, and I know we're talking about volleyball here, but if you look at the track record of John Cook from the time that he has been at Nebraska, that program has excelled tremendously. The amount of volleyball players that he has sent to the Olympics, the amount of volleyball players who have now become coaches. I mean, I can think of just two off the top of my head that are coaching in the SEC.
Other major Division I programs.
Major programs. So it's, and if you look at the volleyball programs, look at where your top 10 schools are. They're in the same conferences as your football programs.
Big football schools.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's just, I found that interesting. Volleyball. I see the numbers in terms of how sports generate, and I'm always like, man, volleyball it just seems to kind of be that one little mark in there that I'm like, I just glom onto that, because I'm like, man, how many people probably wouldn't guess that volleyball makes money at the collegiate level? Because most sports lose money, like your tennis and your field hockey and stuff. They lose money at the collegiate level, but I just found that interesting. I know I got us off on a tangent, but
no. I mean, that's what this is for. So, I mean, and if you look at the TV revenue and the amount of viewers and the amount of publicity and ads that go on for each sport, obviously football is one. March Madness, obviously, is a big one. Volleyball, you're starting to see more ads for volleyball once the tournament starts, and then obviously the College World Series. Even though the College World Series, those ads really don't start until like the week of, but you have regionals, you have super regionals, and then the College World Series itself. It's amazing to see just the amount of money go into those three sports. And then honestly, I would probably think that maybe wrestling would be the next one. And then for some reason, I want to say field hockey. Field hockey, in like the ACC and the SEC with some of those schools would probably be in the top 5.
Maybe, yeah.
So, but oh well. So let's move on from that. Gary, what is one storyline that you are looking forward to this year in college football?
Yeah, I hate to admit it, because I despise the Pac-12, the Pac-10, and the Pac-12. Throughout its history, I've always kind of had a underlying hatred for that conference. I always thought they were overrated. They got too much pub for the talent. Not the talent, but the squads that were there. But I'm interested in this Lincoln Riley USC storyline. How is Caleb Williams going to do coming into USC? How is Lincoln Riley going to get that program back on the map? Because for all my hatred for the conference, USC is still one of those storied programs with rich history, Heisman winners, Hall of Fame running backs, Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So USC is still one of those programs that when they're not successful, right, there's a piece of that collegiate history that's just kind of missing. Plus, you're talking about a school that they're looking at, changing conference and all that stuff that's coming along with that. So that's one storyline I'm looking forward to watching it play out, because I think Lincoln Riley was very fortunate to inherit what he inherited in Oklahoma. Now we're going to see whether Link can go and build a program, right? Go recruit people in. And we've seen some transfers, some transfer portal guys show up there, and those sorts of things. So I look at how that's going to progress and what Lincoln Riley is going to be able to do there with that program, and how they're going to get athletes back in that building, because USC hasn't put the pros into the league that they have, previously. Over the last probably 5, 7, 8 years, they really have not put the level of talent into the pros that they had in the past. So that's one big storyline I'm going to pay attention to this year.
Yeah, and it's what I really want to know. I like the storyline. I really do, because I want to see him fail.
And that's fair, right? I just want to see how it plays out. I'm going to be interested whether he can get them back to prominence. But if they fail, it's going to be fun to watch, because there's going to be a lot of drama, and it's going to be a lot of exposure there.
Yeah, absolutely. And being in LA, you're obviously always under a microscope.
Absolutely.
But one thing that I'm curious, and I haven't seen anything on it, and so correct me if I'm wrong here, but I haven't seen anything come out as to whether or not Riley knew when he took the USC job if USC was shopping around to move to another conference.
That's a good question, and I almost alluded to the fact that Link's changing conferences twice, so that's a good question. Whether or not they talked to him, I have to believe that conversation went on.
I would think so. I mean, you don't make that decision within 2 months or so.
Right.
Yeah. I know it's been more than 2 months, but I mean,
they gave him the keys to the castle. They gave him the private jet, access to the private jet, and yada, 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 and on down the line. I assume that he would have been informed, but no, that's a good question. I'd be curious, given Link some truth serum, and see how he feels about it. But I think money talks, and they paid him a lot of money and spoiled him pretty good. Bought his house and then bought him another house in California, and not to mention the salary they gave him, the private jet,
especially in the time of inflation.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! So, I'd be curious, if given truth serum, to hear how Link thought of that, or if he'd be willing to say, yeah, we had that conversation, then that would make sense, right? But it'd be really funny to hear if they didn't talk to him, and then he's got to kind of play it by the seat of his pants here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely interesting to see how that all plays out.
So what about you? Storyline outside of that, what are you looking forward to?
So give me a second here, because I had a bunch of different ones that I was thinking about, and honestly, like it just came to me the other day. I'm trying to find the video as we're talking here. So bear with me here.
Sure,
Bear with
absolutely.
me. Man, it was a good one. It really, you wonder, man, just a second. I almost got it here. So just bear with me. I saw the video and I was just like, that man gets it. That man gets it. And, it was fun to see him. No, I don't want that right now. Oh, come on. Just a second here. Bunch of storylines. So I'll say some while we're talking here. Obviously, being a Nebraska fan, interested in Nebraska, Scott Frost, how that all pans out.
Is this his make or break year?
Make it or break it. This is make it or break it. If he does not make it, he's done. And
Yeah,
I hate to say that, but he's done.
I agree.
Yeah. So unfortunately, but the other one that I'm looking forward to, obviously, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but the Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban heated rivalry that basically started this off season.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to see how much Alabama beats A&M by.
I don't think Saban's taking his foot off the gas in that game.
Saban is not taking his foot off
No chance
whatsoever.
No chance.
No, none whatsoever. He is going to make it a point to royally fuck them.
Yeah.
Come on. Sorry, Gary. I should have had this right.
You're good. I'll tell you another one I'm looking forward to while you pull that up.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to how Brian Kelly translates down to LSU because we've already heard his fake or throwback Louisiana accent, introducing himself and getting to know the folks down there. He always seemed to recruit just enough at Notre Dame to contend, but they also always played a soft schedule, very beneficial. It's the name. They got into the playoffs quite a bit, got blown out in the playoffs quite a bit. How's he going to, shift gears going down to LSU where football matters more than, the academics that Notre Dame's always kind of talked about? We have academic standards. It's hard to recruit here. Guys like Ty Willingham and even Lou Holtz at the end was talking about how difficult it is to, recruit there. And Brian Kelly mentioned it a few times. Charlie Weiss, when he was there, mentioned it a few times. Now he's down in LSU where, they have obviously admission requirements, but once you're in, we all know what goes on at these big time schools where the football players are, they've got tutors, quote unquote. So how's Brian Kelly going to shift gears here and start to focus on, hey, I'm just bringing in talent. I'm just bringing in guys that are going to help me win football games. So I'm curious to see how that translates. LSU, obviously with, the Tiger King winning the national championship and then kind of falling off a cliff after that. How does he get them back to prominence within the SEC as well?
Yep. I agree. I think I might have it. Just a second. Yes, I do. Right. So just a second here. Oh, can I airdrop it? Yes, I can airdrop it. Oh, yeah. All right. So. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay. So here's a good storyline that I'm looking forward to, and this part of this is he was a Heisman contender last year, and then fell off. Okay, and I'm paying respect to where I live, and so yeah. So let's see it here. Okay. So Shane Beamer, okay? Shane Beamer, head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Okay. Watch this video, and this guy just gets it. Okay. And I think if the players don't buy into what he is talking about, like they need to leave. Like I would play for this guy. This guy is fun. Man, and he's doing it for the right reasons. So let's take a watch here. Just listen.
And happy birthday, Brad. In all seriousness, all right, we're taking a walk. All right, taking a 10-minute walk. We're going to be outside. All right, so if you guys, you can wear what you're wearing. I don't care. We'll meet right down there in the lobby like we did for the spring game. See you downstairs at 9:07. Let's go. All right, everybody hear me okay? That wasn't easy to get up here, correct? In all seriousness, I want you to understand what we do, and then also who we do it for. And y'all saw a lot of stuff happening on this walkover. You saw people out there trimming those trees to make it look great for game day. You see all the construction. You can see the new LED lights and ribbon boards. But imagine you make that walk here, and now you got to climb all those steps to the very top of the upper deck where your head is up against the back of the stadium on the last row. People pay money to come watch you guys play and do that. I don't want us to lose sight of the sacrifices that people make to come watch you guys play down there. People pay money to park, to then walk all the way down Bluff Road, to then climb up this ramp and these steps like we just did to watch you play. People park all the way over there on the top of Rosewood Drive, pay to walk all the way down Rosewood, all the way around the State Fair, to then make this climb all the way to the top to watch you guys play, and the sacrifices that they make as well. They're going to come out here. You know how our fans are. They're the best in the country. They'll be out here when we play Georgia State. It's at night. And then they're also going to do that same walk and that same climb when we play Georgia, the second home game, at 12 noon, when it's around 100 degrees out here. And they're going to sit out here in the sun. We're up here. You're damn near touching the sun for 3.5 hours for you. I want to make sure we don't lose sight of what we're doing and who we're doing it for. And everybody has their why. And whether it's the fan base or whether it's your family, friends, there's a lot of people that make sacrifices to come watch us play. Don't ever, ever, ever take that for granted as well. All right, we got a lot of good going on in this team. Let's keep it going.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. He gets it.
He gets it. He gets it. And I hope his players buy into it as well. And so, obviously, one big notable addition to Gamecock Nation football has been the addition of quarterback Spencer Rattler, who was on a Heisman watch last year. And honestly, I don't know if he ever made our Tailgate Heisman stock report. If he did, shame on us because he flat out sucked last year. Yeah. So we'll see how he turns it around this year under Beamer and the Beamer ball era. So that's one big one that I'm looking forward to being here in South Carolina. So yeah, it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure. Gamecock football is fun to watch. Their fans are crazy. It's SEC football, and I'd like to see them get back to prominence. They've had some big time NFL prospects, with Lattimore and Clowney, and obviously we're looking at Deebo Samuel right now as a monster in the NFL. So, I think Beamer's got that program turning the corner. I hope for his sake that Rattler is better this year than he was last year, because that's going to go a long way to help South Carolina kind of seize that momentum and push their program forward.
Yeah. And so real quick, and then we can transition into our next topic, but staying in the same state, Clemson, see how they bounce back with everything that transpired last year during their season. Obviously their offense sucked. Their defense carried them throughout the whole season. And then you had Venables, your defensive coordinator, who'd been there for years, and who was a key figure in that Clemson football coaching staff. He's now the new head coach at Oklahoma. So now it's, see how Dabo, does without some of his key coaching members, and see how they bounce back this year as well.
Yeah, for sure. They had a rough year last year. And I don't know if DJ's still going to be the quarterback there or not, but he was not good last year. So hopefully they coach him up better for Clemson's sake. Hopefully they coach him up better for sure.
Yep. All right. So switching transitions here. Gary and I have another podcast at 9:00 tonight. So we're going to go for about 10, 15 more minutes with this. So what we want to do is talk about the top 25, but for this week only, we'll limit it to the top 5 teams in the AP. So Gary, what do you think about the top 5 here?
Yeah, some of the things that stick out to me, I'm not surprised by the top 3 here. I am a little surprised that Ohio State is ranked above Georgia. I thought that Bama was going to be number 1. They had a huge recruiting class. Plus, they were really young last year. And I know Saban called it a rebuilding year. Let's call it what it was. They had young players. They lose a ton of fucking players to the NFL every single year. That's kind of the nature of doing business at Alabama. So I'm not surprised Alabama's at number 1. They've got Bryce Young coming back, obviously, with his accolades and his pedigree leading that offense. They've got a couple more weapons that they're going to replace guys like Jamison Williams, who went to the NFL, Mechie and the others that left for the league. And they're just going to keep churning talent out. Ohio State, I like where they're at. Their defense was really young last year, and they got beat up a little bit by Michigan. In that game, Michigan was a bit more physical than Ohio State, I think, was prepared for. I do think Ohio State reloaded, and restocked the cupboards. Georgia, I thought they would carry the momentum of the national championship and be the number 2 team. I do think that Georgia is going to take a bit of a step back this year. They lost some key pieces, and they're going to be pretty young on the defensive side of the ball. Their whole front 4, essentially, which was so dominant last year, they've got to reload there. Lost all that talent to the league. Obviously, you see what talent they had last year. They had the number 1 pick, and then Jordan Davis goes like 13, and then Jordan Davis's inside, his counterpart went, I think, 15 or 16. I mean, you're putting big time linemen in the NFL. It's hard to restock and reload. And I think that they kind of captured some lightning in a bottle last year on offense that I don't know that they're going to have that repeat performance this year. The big surprises to me were at 4 and 5, though. I like Notre Dame. I will say that I really like that they hired in-house, promoted their defensive coordinator, and it's clear we watched the videos during the offseason and talked about it here. They clearly love him, and they are ready to play for him. Yeah. I just don't see Notre Dame as a top 5 team. I think I'm jaded by, Notre Dame they flop every year at the end of the year. And Clemson, to me, is a little too high. The questions are still there at quarterback. And on the defensive side of the ball, losing Brett Venables is a huge huge loss to me.
Yeah.
So if I were the one picking these top 25, I don't slide Clemson out of the top 25, but they're not in the top 5 for me, and they might not be in the top 10 for me right now. I know what Clemson is. I know the pedigree. I know Dabo's ability to recruit and bring guys in, but the question at quarterback and the concerns for me on the defensive side of the ball, losing Venables, I probably would have slid them back maybe 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range. And Notre Dame for me, probably similar. I probably would have slid them back, and I probably moved like A&M up. I might move Utah up. I love what Utah is doing, and I love how they finished last year. So for me, top 25, the top 3, fine. You could put them in whatever order. 4 and 5 for me were surprises and concerns for me in the top 5.
You hit the nail on the head. I'm in total agreement with you here. Obviously, Alabama 1. We both agree there. 2 and 3. I honestly think you could flip flop.
Flip a coin, right?
Yeah, and still, honestly, I know what Georgia lost, but at the end of the last season, they won the Natty. So you could make the argument, hey, they're number 1 until
they're knocked off, right?
Sure,
Absolutely.
You can make that argument. Ohio State, yeah, sure. I think they should be 3. And then you get to 4 and 5. And obviously, some major concerns, major questions with both schools. And I'm with you. I like the in-house hire that Notre Dame did. Everyone seems to love him. Totally agree with that. I like the hire. I really do. But they haven't proven anything, though, either.
It's still a new coach, too.
It's still a new coach. And I guess if you're – I know they have an end of the season ranking and everything, and this is a new season, so you're kind of going off of what you brought in as far as transfer portal, your recruiting class, this and that. If anything, Notre Dame at 5 is fine with me, if anything, okay? But having Clemson at number 4, that is a slap in the face to the 1 through 10 schools, even probably the 1 through 15 schools. Honestly, like that one right there for me was like, what the fuck are you guys looking at here? You don't have a quarterback. The offense from the previous year, did they get any better? Don't think so. You just lost the defensive coordinator who had been there for about 11, 12 years. That was a staple of that program.
He's a difference maker.
He is a difference maker. Absolutely. Absolutely. So to put Clemson at 4, they are going to fail. And they are going to fail hard. And I hate to see that for Dabo. But when you put that expectation of number 4 right there, they lose early on in the season, they're done.
Yeah.
I just
guys falling.
Yeah, I don't see them if they keep with DJ. Now, I think they brought in a decent quarterback, but can he perform at the collegiate level? I mean, time will tell. But again, here we are. And how many games did they win last year?
I think they won 9. I think they ended up sneaking 9, maybe 8 in their bowl game. But they
lost
some bad games too.
Some bad games. Okay.
Georgia held them to a fucking field goal.
Yeah.
That was when Georgia's defense said, hey, we're here.
Yep, exactly. You lose some bad games. You don't have a quarterback, and you lose your defensive coordinator,
right?
And you're putting us at 4. If I'm Dabo Swinney, I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing to me? Like, this is a big FU.
He's the Bama and everybody else guy that always plays the underdog card, but he can't do that this
year. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I thought about it when I saw it. Like maybe they went on pedigree because the AP does have a tendency to lean that way, like the big schools that are always in the media. But then I look down, and I don't want to spoil anything for next week, so I'm not going to talk much about the teams. But I look down in like 19 or 18 through 25, and I see Kentucky, I see Cincinnati, I see USC. I see BYU. I see Houston. I see Wake. Like, it's not pedigree, right? If you're looking at the top 25 here, it's not pedigree. So I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know what the AP sees in Clemson that they're putting them there. Like USC, I guess if they're thinking Link's just going to turn it around quickly, fine. Maybe Caleb Williams is going to go in there and light the world on fire. We saw what kind of talent that guy has, but this Clemson one perplexes me. I don't know how they're 4. I would have struggled to keep them in the top 10. I don't think I would have gone any higher than maybe 9-ish, 8 if I really tried to favor Clemson. No way do I have them in the top 5. No way. No way do I have them in a play. Because essentially they're number 4 right now. They're in a playoff position.
Yep. In
the preseason poll. There is no chance I think that Clemson's a playoff team this year.
Absolutely not. No. Absolutely not. So, yeah, it'll be interesting, bud. It'll be interesting.
It's going to be a fun season, though.
It's going to be a fun season.
Clemson aside, it's going to be a fun season.
Absolutely. All right. So before we end tonight's episode, which is season 2, episode 1, obviously we started a new season. We're here every Wednesday night now, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gary, what's the big news, bud?
Yeah, so this year we are looking to get out, be a little more active, get out and see college campuses, because the name of the show is Tailgate, right? Tailgate Trash Talk. You can't have a show called Tailgate Trash Talk and not do some fucking tailgating. So we are starting September 22nd. We will be in Blacksburg for the border war, West Virginia, Virginia Tech. And we're going to make it a weekend, guys. We're going to be in Virginia Tech, and then we're going to go to Knoxville, and we're going to watch Bama versus Tennessee. We're going to make a whole weekend of it, and we're already looking ahead beyond that to see what other dates we can get on the schedule to potentially get together. Stove and I are going to be in the same location. We are not in the same location on a weekly basis. We are going to be in the same location, tailgating, doing what this show is all about. Starting this season, we're going to be looking at locations that we can do this and get out there, see the people, have fun on a college campus, go see some college football games, make this show really Tailgate Trash Talk.
Absolutely, bud. Hit the nail on the head, and that's getting out there to the college campuses and tailgating with the people, tailgating with the fans. We're going to be throwing out some T-shirts, some koozies, whatever. We're going to be podcasting live from these college campuses the day of the games. And what better way to start off that tradition than Blacksburg, Virginia Tech,
prime time.
Sandman,
Sandman.
I aim Thursday night. It doesn't get any better than that. That is one of those games that we talked about on last season that we would love to go do. We would love to go to a Virginia Tech night game and just hear the crowd, that first entrance with the players. And here we are. We're going to live that this year. We're going to try and do – we got 2 already on books. We're going to try to do possibly 1 more down in this area, in the South Carolina area, either a South Carolina game, a Clemson game, or even a Coastal, baby. We were high on Coastal last year, so we look forward to it this year. We look forward to it. We're hoping to grow the podcast, especially by going to these campuses and podcasting there, but just being with the fans, because essentially we're fans too. We're just providing a show with our opinions on all these colleges. So on a sport that we love. So I know Gary's excited. I'm excited. We can't wait for that first week when we start to go tailgate. So yeah, and if you guys, any one of our viewers, if you guys want us to come to one of your guys' home games or anything like that, drop a comment on our Facebook page or anything, and we'll see if we can make it work. Because that's what we're all about. We've already been kind of planning out this year, and we're hoping to grow it next year too, and hit more games next year as well. So I'm excited, bud. Can't wait.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Get out there and tailgate.
Yes, sir. All right. That was the big news. This is season 2, episode 1 of Tailgate Trash Talk. My man Gary with me. I'm the Big Stove. Until next week, next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you guys stay classy.